This is your host Trenz signing in, and welcome to another episode of Trenz Podcast. For today's episode, I will be doing a book review of a middle grade book series by author Rick Riordan. The book titles are Percy Jackson and the Olympians, The Titan's Curse, and Percy Jackson and the Olympians, The Battle of the Labyrinth. You may also follow me on Instagram at TrenzYBA, Twitter at TrenzIbanez, and on YouTube as Katrina Ibanez. Without further ado, let's begin the book review. And now, before I do my book review of Percy Jackson and the Olympians, The Titan's Curse, I will be reading the little summary that you can read at the back of the book. It's not every day you find yourself in combat with a half-lion, half-human. But when you are a son of the Greek god, it happens. And now my friend Annabeth is missing. A goddess is in chains, and only 5 half-blood heroes can join the quest to defeat the Doomsday Monster. And guess what? The Oracle has predicted not all of us will survive. How very ominous. And now we go to my book review portion of the first book, which happens to be Percy Jackson and the Olympians, The Titan's Curse, author Rick Riordan, genre middle grade, fiction, fantasy, and adventure. Number of pages 294. Started reading this book on August 13, 2021. Finished reading this book on August 15, 2021. And the format of the book happens to be an ebook. Ooh, goody! The book review portion. This is a book and a book series that I would recommend. The Adventures of Percy Jackson, son of Poseidon, Annabeth Chase, daughter of Athena, and Grover Underwood, a satyr, continues. In this book, we are introduced to Thalia Grace, the newly revived daughter of Zeus, formerly a part of the pine tree that was the source of the protective barriers surrounding Camp Half-Blood. Percy, Thalia, and Annabeth are sent to a military school to aid Grover, who has once again discovered, or recently discovered, 2 new and very powerful demigods / half-blood. This time, it was a brother and sister pair named Nico and Bianca D'Angelo. One of the teachers, called Mr. Thorne, is actually a monster, a manticore, to be precise, and they are rescued by Zoe Nightshade and her fellow hunters of Artemis and Lady Artemis herself. During the rescue, though, Annabeth goes missing. And at this point in time, Bianca decides to join the hunt. Then they are escorted by Lord Apollo, the twin brother of Lady Artemis, to Camp Half-Blood. And if you don't know who Lord Apollo and Lady Artemis are, I'll just tell you some of the things I remember about my Greek mythologies. Is that Lady Artemis is the goddess of the moon and the hunt, while Lord Apollo is the sun god, and he's also the god of music, medicine, and prophecies. And at some point, while doing regular camp activities such as capture the flag versus hunters and campers, the Oracle of Delphi comes down from her attic and delivers a prophecy to Zoe Nightshade. The prophecy on how to save Artemis and by extension Annabeth goes as follows. 5 shall go west to the goddess in chains. 1 shall be lost in the land without rain. The bane of Olympus shows the trail. Campers and hunters combined prevail. The Titan's curse must one withstand, and 1 shall perish by a parent's hand. So at first the group consisting of Zoe, Bianca, Phoebe, Thalia, and Grover Underwood, in order to save Artemis, who is the goddess in chains. But unfortunately for Phoebe, the Stoll brothers, who just happens to be sons of Hermes, played a last-minute prank on her, so she was unable to go with them. Sometime between that, Percy saves what is literally a sea cow, a creature whose upper half was that of a calf and the lower half of a sea serpent, who he names Bessie. Later on, we find out that Bessie is actually the bane of Olympus, called the Ophiuchorus, sea bull in Greek. Just what is the Titan's curse? Will they be able to save Artemis and Annabeth? Well, who will perish in the land without rain? And just who will be killed by their own parent? Who is Nico and Bianca's godly parent? Read the book to find out. And here are some spoilers if you want to know the unveiling of the prophecy. The prophecy unveils throughout the story. Number 1. The group, the first line in the prophecy, the group consisting of Zoe, Talia, Grover, Bianca, and Percy, originally Phoebe. The questers travel to Mount Otris in the west to free Artemis from her captivity. The second line is, for the second line, Bianca sacrificed herself in the desert to save the group against a detective prototype of Festus robot, Talos. And now on to the third line. They followed Ophisaurus, which was called the Bane of Olympus because if he was sacrificed in flames, the person that sacrificed it, or him, would have the power to destroy Olympus. During the quest, it keeps appearing in various bodies of water. For the fourth line of the prophecy, the only way the quest would be successful was if the campers and hunters worked together. The quest consisted of 3 campers, Percy, Grover, and Talia, and the hunters are Bianca and Zoe. And fifth, in order to win the battle at Mount Othrys, someone will have to take the Titan's curse and free Artemis from her burdens so she can fight Atlas. Percy Jackson withstands the Titan's curse after realizing he has no chance to beat Atlas. And in the end, Zoe was killed by the poison from the dragon Ladon, cause of her Titan father Atlas. Now that's it for the first book. And now I will be reading the book summary at the back of the book, Percy Jackson and the Olympians, The Battle of the Labyrinth. Percy Jackson isn't expecting freshman year orientation to be any fun. But when a mysterious mortal acquaintance appears at his potential new school, followed by demon cheerleaders, things quickly move from bad to worse. In this 4th installment of the blockbuster series, time is running out. The war between the Olympians and the evil titan Lord Kronos draws near. Even the safe haven Camp Half-Blood grows more vulnerable by the minute, as Kronos' army prepares to invade its once impenetrable borders. To stop the invasion, Percy and his demigod friends must set out on a quest through the labyrinth, a sprawling underground world with stunning surprises at every turn. And now here is the book review portion of Percy Jackson and the Olympians, The Battle of the Labyrinth. Author Rick Warden. Genre middle grade, fiction and fantasy. Number 361 pages. Started reading this book on August 15, 2021. Finished reading it August 21, 2021. And the format was once again an ebook. This is a book and series that I would definitely recommend reading. The Adventures of Percy Jackson, son of Poseidon, Annabeth Chase, daughter of Athena, and Grover Underwood, a satyr, continues. This time with the help of Tyson, and later on with the help of a clear-sighted mortal named Rachel Elizabeth there. They navigate through the labyrinth and find its creator, Daedalus. We are introduced to Quintus, the new sword instructor at Camp Half-Blood, and his pet hellhound, Mrs. O'Leary. During their time at camp, Percy and Annabeth witness the fact that Grover is given only a week to find Pan. In Greek mythology, a fertility deity, more or less bestial in form, he is associated by the Romans with Faunus. Pan was generally represented as a vigorous and lustful figure, having horns, legs, and ears of a goat. In later art, the human parts of his form were much more emphasized. Or have his seeker license revoked. Percy and Annabeth also find an entrance to the labyrinth in between the gap of Zeus' fist, right dab smack in the middle of Camp Half-Blood. Later on, it is deduced that Luke has plans to use the labyrinth opening to launch an attack on Camp Half-Blood to the Greek gods' aid against Cronus and his army when the war between the Titans led by Cronus and the Greek gods led by Zeus starts. And finally, Annabeth is given her own quest after she receives a prophecy from the Oracle of Delphi. The prophecy is as follows. You shall delve in the darkness of the endless maze, the dead, the traitor, and the lost one raise. You shall rise and fall by the Ghost King's hand, the child of Athena's final stand, destroy with hero's final breath, and lose a love too worse than death. They find Nico D'Angelo, who is guided by a ghost of Minos. They also encounter Ethan Nakamura, son of Nemesis, who Percy spares when they are pitted against each other for some sort of entertainment against Antaeus, in Greek mythology, a giant of Libya, the son of the sea god Poseidon and the earth goddess Gaia. He compelled all the strangers who were passing through the country to wrestle with him. Percy eventually kills Antaeus, who happens to be his half-brother through his father Poseidon. They eventually find the workplace of Daedalus to find out that he and Quintus are one person. Annabeth, Percy, and Rachel are then told that Luke already has Ardene's string. Ardene, in Greek mythology, the daughter of Persephone and a certain King Minos. She fell in love with the Athenian hero Theseus, and with the thread or glittering jewels helped him escape the labyrinth after he slew the Minotaur, a beast, half bull and half man, that Minos kept in the labyrinth. Percy, Annabeth, and Rachel must now find their way to warn Camp Half-Blood of the impending danger of Luke's army. Will Percy, Annabeth, and Rachel find Grover and Tyson? Will Tyson and Grover find Pan? Will Percy, Annabeth, Grover, and Tyson make it back to camp in time? Which side will Nico D'Angelo choose? What happened to Ethan? Read the book to find out. And now to unveiling the prophecy. The prophecy unveils throughout the story. For the first line, Annabeth, Grover, Percy, and Tyson enter the labyrinth to find Daedalus. The labyrinth goes on forever, ever-changing and expanding. The second line, Nico, son of Hades, raised the dead. Ethan Nakamura, the traitor who was spared, and Pan's spirit and the message are spread into the world. As for the third line, the Ghost King was Nico, since he is the son of Hades, the god of the underworld, which also makes him Talia and Percy's cousin, who decided to help Annabeth and the rest of the campers. If he had refused, the rest of the questers would not have survived. The fourth line. The child of Athena's final stand refers to Daedalus, one of Athena's children, because he dies during the Battle of the Labyrinth. Fifth line. The labyrinth was destroyed with Daedalus' last breath, as he and the maze's life force were tied together. Daedalus asks Nico to free his soul. in order to destroy his creation. Well, that was deep. For the sixth and last line of the prophecy, Annabeth loses Luke to Kronos. Seeing a loved one used as the vessel for the evilest entity imaginable is far worse than them merely dying. And that is all for the book review for this episode. Hey there, listeners, that's all for today's episode of Trenz Podcast. You can find Trenz Podcast on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Don't forget to follow and subscribe and to leave a comment. And to hear more book reviews and other topics, stay tuned for another episode of Trenz Podcast. And keep on listening.